I'm excited to start up what coaches think. This time it's a high school edition one. We have Coach Fuca, obviously, from Prolific Prep, Coach DJ Jackson from Legacy, and from Greensboro today, Coach Freddy Johnson. What's going on today, guys?
Not much. Happy to be here tonight.
Absolutely. Well, let's just first start off with this. We know a lot of adjustments going on, getting ready for the high school season. Let's start with you, Coach Fuca. I mean, this is your first year now at Prolific Prep. Take us through what it's been like getting to this point you're at.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. Yeah, I mean, I think obviously we're all trying to figure out what to do right now. I think the times are unprecedented, but we're making headway. And we're still recruiting as if we would always recruit, but it's a little hard to get families to come to California when California is probably one of the worst states that's going on with the COVID.
Without a doubt. Coach Jackson, you as well now. You've also had a 99th season, work on putting your team together. Take us through what it's been like getting to the point you're at now.
Pretty much same as Coach said earlier. I mean, like the whole process of trying to get kids on campus has been like a nightmare, but fortunately we've been able to do virtual tours. Our school does a great job of getting film out to different potential scholars and their family. And, you know, just once we get that process done, like South Carolina's another hotspot state. So we're just trying to work through it. Our staff has done a great job as well as the school. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, so we'll be able to get into the school and get this thing going.
And Coach Johnson, how about you?
Well, it's going really well for us, honestly, right now. We had over 75 applications during the month of July for our school. So we are starting school. We have a head of school that's unbelievable. Last January, she had us getting ready for this. And so when we went out of school in March, we already had a program. And actually, most of the private schools in the state of North Carolina have copied our program. So we are prepared for this, and we're thrilled we're going to be starting school on August 19th. So we're ready to go.
And Coach Fuca, I mean, you've obviously been on before. We did the IG Live, and some people obviously talk about you. People know you from the Overtime Show as well now. Your first year, you get a Geico Nationalist opportunity. Obviously, you guys couldn't go, as well as also winning Grind Session. But just take us through your career. How have you got to the point you're at now?
Yeah, I mean, Zach, it's been I've been very fortunate to be around really good coaches and really good players. You know, my career started as a grad assistant with Eric Musselman on the Nevada Reno staff about 5 years ago when he first took the job. And he was a mentor of mine and learned a ton from him. And obviously he's at Arkansas now in the SEC. And I did 1 year as a grad assistant with him. I've always had an AAU program that we've talked about with my dad. This will be our 15th year actually doing it, and have known Jeremy and Phil, the directors at Prolific Prep, and last year was obviously my first year, and was fortunate to be around some really good players, and just like I said, I've learned a lot from guys that have been at the next level, and this year at Prolific Prep was a special year, and we look forward to having a great year next year as well.
And with you, Coach Jackson, this is now your 9th season, got over 200 career wins. And you're putting together one of your best rosters you've had now this upcoming season. Take us through what it's been like these first few years now at Legacy.
It's been a great ride so far. Been able to come over from a regular public school over to Legacy and just establishing what we want to do over there. We've had some great players come through here like Juwan Evans, Nick Claxton. They help establish the foundation that we have now. I've always had great staffs up under me. Very supportive community as well as very supportive administrators at the school that has allowed me to do the things that we do within our basketball program. So we're blessed, and hopefully that, like I said, in the next couple of weeks we get started. This group that we have now is going to be a special group, and hopefully we get them meshing and going at the same time.
Without a doubt. Coach Johnson, what about you?
So basically, I've been there 43 years, so mine's a little different story. I started Greensboro Day my first year out of college, and I've been there all 43 years. I'm fortunate that we have 100% of our graduates go to college. Our average SAT is 1,300. So I'm able to get kids into a lot of different schools, and we feel fortunate at that. And being able to build a basketball program, when I started out with 8 players my first year, and it took me 4 years before I had a winning season. It was a real experience on the good and the bad early, and it taught me to be more humble and to be a better sport. It really starting out like that. And so we've been the last 10 years, we were ranked the #1 team in the state of North Carolina. So we've come a long ways.
And just to stay with you real quick, Coach Johnson, as you said, 44 years, over 1,000 wins in your career, 11 state championships. What's it been like just being able to pull in all of the accolades and achievements to get to the point you're at right now?
Well, I got great assistant coaches, and I've been very fortunate to have great kids to coach. Plus, I've had 4 heads of school who have been very supportive, like Coach Jackson was saying, of his school. You got to have heads of school supportive of you, and I've been lucky to have great support. And being from Greensboro, I've never left Greensboro, so I know 3/4 of Greensboro. So it's been a great experience for me. And the last 5 or 6 months has been the toughest time I've ever had, not being able to be around my students and spend time with my players. It was a very difficult time for all of us.
So, Coach Fuca, we're going to head over to you now. Talk about prolific prep, as we know, heading into what could have been a Geico run this past season. As you get ready for this year, how are you kind of planning to get guys on campus, get them start working out, and kind of get ready for whatever the season might look like?
Yeah, I mean, similar to the other 2 coaches, we've done virtual stuff as well. I think the rate of kids that we're getting to come on campus, because Napa is actually not on the watch list anymore, so we're able to have workouts in our county. So things are starting to pick up the longer the time goes on and the virus hopefully slows down. But yeah, I mean, listen, we graduated 7 guys. We've recruited. We've already got a commitment from a kid in Texas. So, we're slowly making our recruiting process as easy as possible. But I think with our success this past year, gives us a leg up in terms of the recruitment inbound. And now we've just got to do a good job of building a team that has good kids and good players on and off the floor.
And Coach Jackson, you have a few of your core pieces returning. Jacoby, obviously, Perry, and Ike as well. You're adding in guys like Bryce, like Keon. How do you plan to get them acclimated to this core group once they're able to get out there?
Basically, they've already started like a little group chat going among all players. And pretty much, with their circuit, most of them already know each other. Just been able to do like a couple of Zoom meetings with the whole team and to get them used to each other. We're going to start next week sending out pretty much our playbook and what we plan to do for this upcoming season. With us, we're going to start school virtually on August 24th. So we probably won't be able to get our kids on campus to mid-September, which is kind of difficult for us because in previous years, we've always started like early August and just went from there, started working out. But, we send them home workouts for them to do basketball as well, strength-wise. And hopefully, they just continue to, within the group chat, just continue to conversate with each other. And hopefully by the time we get them on campus, we'll be ready to go.
And Coach Johnson, for you, you're almost in the same boat of having quite a few guys move on. Obviously, Carson's a big piece as well as Cam. How do you kind of plan to fill those shoes for the upcoming season?
Well, it's difficult to lose a player like Carson McCorkle, who's playing at Virginia, and Cam Hayes at NC State. But we're very fortunate. We had 4 new kids come into the school who are all good players. We started back in March doing Zoom meetings every other week. And we also started having our players watch tapes with our video coordinator. And so they've been doing tapes for the last 3 or 4 months. And so that's how we're staying in touch with them. And we did conditioning in July, which we were able to do outside. And at the end of July, some of our guys started working out at a gym that was open. So they're getting in the gym just without us. And, the thing we miss, and I'm sure the other coaches say the same thing, you can't build a personal relationship like you'd like to right now. And that's something we're going to have to catch up with in September and October.
When you don't know what could be possibly canceled or postponed in the future, how do you get ready? How do you get these guys ready for the season, Coach Fuca?
I think like Coach just mentioned, I think that a lot of these guys that are passionate about the game, especially playing at the next level, I think that they're diligent about getting in the gym, whatever gym that may be. I know guys that are on my team that are returners. I've gotten to the gym with a few of those guys, but they all have different trainers they work out with. So from a coaching perspective, you make sure that those guys are getting their own work in, but then also you make sure that, like both the coaches said, they've done Zoom calls. I think that's a good way to keep your guys together and building for the future. And so, we're trying to do as much as we can legally, and then see what eventually happens.
And all you guys are obviously dealing with some of the top players in the country. All guys are going Division I mostly in you guys' programs. And Coach Jackson, when you talk about recruiting teams for next year's roster, this year's roster, as also trying to get you guys to college, how do you kind of balance that out amongst the COVID pandemic?
Oh, man. I mean, like I said, I have a great staff. Jeff Merritt, who handles a lot of our recruiting. He was at Lala Mary, ACD, coached a little bit of college ball as well. Mike Alexander, who's been with me for several years. I mean, we do a great job of balancing among each other. Jeff handles the incoming kids. Myself and Mike will handle the kids that we have already on campus, as well as we start preparing them for the collegiate level. We're fortunate at Legacy. We have what we call a graduation coach that handles a lot of our kids that's heading out for us, like college-wise. So that takes a lot of the burden off my staff as far as like getting them prepared for when they get ready to leave. But again, preparing for this upcoming year, I mean, I've told my staff we're going to prepare like this is the regular season. No postponements or anything. If they do arise, we just have to make adjustments.
And Coach Johnson, as you see guys continue to go through your program, continue to get guys to the next level, take us through what it feels like as a coach to see each one of these guys graduate and move on to make the dreams happen.
Well, it's kind of different what we've had to do with all this year. And I think, we've sent a lot of videotapes out of games to college coaches and stuff. And I got my assistant coaches, like Coach Jeff Smith's been with me for quite some time. He coached in college and he's been with me twice. He handles a lot of our college recruiting by the college coaches. And we're a step ahead because of him. He does a wonderful job with his contacts, and our kids are ready to go. I mean, like Cam Hayes, we got a phone call about him the other day, how his basketball IQ is so good and his habits are so good. And he had a 3.9 in summer school. So, anybody likes a kid like that. They could do that kind of work academically.
Without a doubt. You had a special kind of year this past year, Coach Fuca. You had overtime around you, went through this entire TV show that we're all being able to watch now. What was it like just having cameras around you guys nonstop and kind of dealing with the TV aspects?
It was different for sure. I think kids that are 16, 17, 18-year-old kids, I think the biggest thing was just making sure that they were professional on and off the court. We wanted to make sure that, our boys are behaving and being good leaders and a good image of our school. And then, I think we felt very fortunate. I mean, they followed us everywhere. So you got to be responsible, but also, we had a really rigorous schedule. So we're traveling all over the country, and just like the two coaches on the phone, you guys play a national schedule. I mean, we were very fortunate to have overtime pick up our season. And I think that our boys knew that. And one of our goals was to obviously win a championship that we've never done in our program's history. And so we were very fortunate to be a part of their show and achieve our goals.
And Coach Jackson, as Coach Fuca just said, you guys also deal with having a big spotlight on you guys, playing national schedules, big-time games all year long. How do you keep guys mentally locked in on the season while still balancing schoolwork and just trying to work out their own craft?
It's a tough task, but I think we do a great job of it. Our school prepares our kids for this type of program that we do. We provide all the kids with Chromebooks when we're on the road. When we're traveling, we do have study hall while we're still on the road. So, the mental aspect of we're still preparing you for the collegiate level. We're going to do everything they do at the collegiate level. So when you leave our program, you are better prepared for it. And even with the mental aspect, sometimes as coaches, it wears and tears on you as well. So, we push our coaches to get in the fitness center. At our school, faculty and staff are required to work out 3 times a week for 30 minutes. So it helps us mentally as well. But I think the biggest asset that we have is we do have a tutor that travels with us. One of our coaches, he handles all the tutoring for our program, and he makes sure like work is turned in, work is completed. If somebody hasn't done anything, he sits behind weights with them till it's completed. To have that in our program is a big asset for us.
And Coach Johnson, how do you balance the academic aspect as well?
Now, we're fortunate. We're a laptop school, so every one of my players have a laptop. And so when we travel, we have required study halls, and they're required to get assignments before they leave the school. And so it's pretty simple for our guys to keep up with that. And our teachers, they help them by putting it online, stuff you need to have. And so it's really easy for us with the laptop program.
I mean, Coach Fuga, when you're looking at the guys you lost, as you mentioned, pretty much most of the roster is gone. You're losing also 2 McDonald's All-Americans, which is going to be hard to replace. How do you get guys ready to kind of fill those shoes and try putting together a season just as good as last year, if not better?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, it's kind of the next man up, right? We have a few guys that are waiting for that light, and Jordan Pope's one of those guys. He had a good sophomore year. I think his junior year will be a bigger year. We recruited a couple, 4 or 5-star guys. And, I think that last year we had 2 guys that were McDonald's All-Americans that were very talented, but they were great kids. And now, we're looking to fill some pretty big shoes, but it's always the next man up. I'm sure that both the other coaches have, lost. It sounds like Greensboro lost a few big guys. And so, I think it's just the next man up. It's the underclassmen that are hungry and waiting for their light. So we have 4 to 5 guys that are waiting for that time, and they'll have their time their junior and senior year and throw in a couple recruits. And then I think that we'll try to install our program's values early on and try to make another national run.
And for you, Coach Jackson, we all know that all you guys that do prep national schedules kind of schools, it's different than just the average coaching job. What did it kind of take, and when did you kind of decide that this was what you wanted to pursue, Coach Jackson?
Man, I'm gonna be honest with you. I've always had like ambitions of doing this type of thing. Growing up, I used to watch games like Oak Hill and, of course, the Matthew and Morgan Wood was there, and it was always one of the dreams to have the opportunity to be in a situation like this. And I was fortunate enough that I worked up on a guy named Louis Golden, who was one of the top winners coaches in the state of South Carolina. And he always told me that, you're not going to be at the public school system for long. And, you're going to go on to another level. And I was fortunate enough, the owner of the school gave me this opportunity. And, he basically said, we want to build something like what the Mathis done, Oak Hill done right here in South Carolina. And like I said, we've had people to buy into what we're doing in the community as well as the school. And we're a great – I can't say enough about our leadership at our school. They have done a great job of what we're doing over
there. And Coach Johnson, you've been able to kind of see the evolution of basketball in terms of high school, where it used to not be this many prep schools. It used to be the Oak Hill, the Mathis, just a few schools. How have you adjusted to the new wave of basketball and having so many more national scheduled schools out there?
Well, you know what? High school basketball has really improved. And with the other 2 coaches on here, I've seen both their teams play, and they're both outstanding programs. But the problem is now it's a ton of outstanding programs. And I think the prep school route is where a lot of the kids are going to get more exposure and playing a stronger schedule. And so we've taken that next step also. But unfortunately for us, we can't play as many games we'd like to play at the national level because of our scheduling thing. So playing like in the Chick-fil-A, it's been a great experience for us. We were in the Bass Pro last year, which is one of the most wonderful tournaments I've been in, playing in front of 16,000 people in a high school game, which is pretty unbelievable for us. And I think that to keep up, you just got to make sure you're building your program. Like Joey said, next guy up has got to be ready to do it. And your culture is so important. And you can't forget that. You got to establish that culture and don't change it.
We've seen the evolution where basketball in high school is almost more watched now than some people in the pros. You've seen the way the fans come out, the amount of support for high school basketball, Coach Fuca. What goes through your mind? What's it like seeing how big high school basketball has now become?
Well, it's definitely on the rise. I mean, I think the combination of the social media aspect with, kids being on it nowadays to then the combination of having, these players that are pretty big figures in the social media eye. I think that, like Coach said, there's now these tournaments that have several of these players that carry a lot of weight that make these tournaments so big. And so I think the combination of having, very, very talented players and very sought after players that are on the social media eye, combining with some of these atmospheres like the Chick-fil-A, like the Bass Pro, like the Hoop Hall West and East. I mean, I think that these these tournament directors doing a really good job of capturing all the best players in the country. And I think that we're just at the beginning. We're at the tip of the iceberg in terms of where basketball is going. And I think that as we see the NBA with this bubble model, I think that they're proving everybody that that's the way to go. So I think that the popularity will just continue to rise.
Couldn't agree more. And Coach Jackson, as you said, when you came originally to Legacy, it wasn't obviously what it is today. You spent the past 9-10 years now developing this into what it is. How have you been able to build it now where you add guys that have a full lineup now, guys that are ranked in the top 150 on a roster?
It's almost like Coach Johnson. You got to build a culture there. And I think we've done a great job there the past 9 years. We built our culture that we wanted to be able to sustain even after I decided to leave. And, of course, you know, building relationships. The game of basketball is about building relationships, whether it's coaching or with other coaches or whether it's dealing with parents and stuff. I'm a big relationship guy, you know. I know Bryce McGowan's dad. We used to actually coach against each other. And, you know, he broke my heart when he sent Trey over the hard grade and stuff, and I thought we were going to get him as well. But the relationship stayed there, and Bryce came to me. Got to know Carl, Keon's dad, over the past couple of months and stuff. And I think that what we've done as far as our culture, it speaks for itself. You know, like Coach Johnson said earlier, we've had 100% graduation rate, 100% placement throughout all our students since I've been at Legacy. And it speaks for itself what we're doing academically. We have the early college program, which a lot of people seek out nowadays when kids can go to college with some college credits already in hand. And even with the community, the kids come out and support. I mean, we had a game last year where we had to turn away 300 people at our arena. So, I mean, we just build our coach and sustain it. That's the main thing we're trying to do right now.
And for you, Coach Johnson, almost 25% of your seasons you've coached now have resulted in a state championship. How do you establish a state championship kind of culture in your locker room? How do you kind of do that?
When a kid comes and visits our school and wants to join the basketball program, we start right there explaining our culture to them. But more importantly, we explain it to the parent, and we make sure the parent understands what our culture is, because we got to have the parent buy in and the kid to buy in to have a successful program. And I think you got to have support of your students and your faculty and your administration to be successful. And it's just not coaching. It's more than that now. It's a lot of the off the court stuff you got to take care of. And if you don't do that, it'll come back and get you.
And we see the also big change now. It's most of you guys have been adjusting now, just dealing with college coaches. Coach Fuca, you now had your first year. Jalen Green obviously created the new path, the G League route, the pro route. How is this going to start changing the game of basketball now that pros are getting involved in the recruiting process?
Well, I definitely think it's going to be an impact because, some of these kids that are good enough and fortunate enough to make that jump, there's going to be a lot of families that decide on that route or at least be involved in that recruiting process. I think that Jalen, it was the best decision for him and his family, and we support that. And I think that this is just the tip. I mean, I think a lot of players, the top players in the country, obviously we saw Jonathan Kuminga, who's in the 2021 class, make a decision. So, I think that this will absolutely be the beginning of this. And I think the NCAA will continue to make adjustments as the G League is going to be a very interesting option for a lot of players.
Coach Jackson, what's your thoughts on the G League route?
Honestly, I think it's great. I mean, I've always been a firm believer. If a kid has the talent and it has the ability to go to that level, why not allow them to do it? I was having a conversation with Nick Klassen's dad last night. We talked about it for a little bit. And, I told him, if the kid has opportunity and they're going to provide the funds to pay for them to go to school while they're playing, why not take the opportunity? Because now the kid's one step closer to their dreams that they want to do.
Couldn't agree more. And Coach Johnson, once again, this is another big change throughout your coaching career. How do you kind of plan to deal with the G League stuff, and what's your thoughts on the pro route?
I'm not really sure I'm going to have any G League players, but at this point in time. But I think the coaches said it right. I mean, if the kid is ready to go, he needs to go in and go. What I like the best is they're going to provide an education. And I think they got to do that. I'm more concerned about our kids getting ready to commit to a college, and they commit in the fall. Then in the spring, the NCAA is going to let these kids transfer, and they're going to be eligible right away. And I don't know how they're going to control that because they're going to recruit over the kid that's going to commit in the fall. So that, in our world, that concerns me a lot more than the G League.
What's your thoughts, Coach Fuca, on just the whole transferring aspect that's going to come in at some point?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Coach. I do think that, a lot of these families that make early decisions, that a lot of this stuff, as we know, is all business. And I think that, transferring to another university and not having to sit out is a humongous value for a lot of these coaches. Like I said, I coach with Eric Musselman. He's all on the transfer market. So, I think that families that commit early and then they get, there's going to be a lot of recruiting over. And so I think that the NCAA definitely needs to make an adjustment in terms of certain transfers that are able to play immediately. And so we'll be interested to see what happens.
And Coach Jackson, would you advise your guys going through this recruiting process to maybe wait a little bit longer? I mean, I know most of your rosters already commit out of their core group. Would you say possibly for guys in the future waiting a little bit to see what could happen? Is that probably a thing you might advise them in?
You got to weigh your options on it. It depends on what – I mean, every kid is a different situation. If the kid understands that their school actually wants them and, and they need to go into the process asking questions about, are you going to plan on transfer, recruiting or whatnot. And we tell our kids do that all the time. We say you need to ask the coaches question when the ones that's recruiting you so you have a better understanding before you make your final decision. Because like I tell them, when you sign that dotted line, you're going out there for a reason. You don't want to be in a situation side the dotted line, not knowing what's going to transpire and stuff. They bring somebody else in there. So I always tell my kids, ask questions and continue to ask questions to the final day before you make your commitment.
And Coach Johnson, what would you say has been some of the biggest advice you give your guys when they're going through their recruiting process?
We start their junior year going over the pros and cons of each school they're looking at. And my biggest advice is when they go for a visit, we don't want them to commit. We want them to come back for 48 hours before they make that decision. And I think it's important they find out, is the school taking a lot of transfers? Where are their players coming from? Do they stick with guys multiple years or do they recruit over them? And I think with the new rules, if that goes through the transfer rule, we're going to advise our kids to look early. And if they can go early and they feel comfortable with the school, we'd like for them to do it because we're afraid if they wait late, then a transfer is going to take their place. And it's just going to be very interesting. It's going to be different. And I think we have to, all three of us, adapt a different way to that.
And Coach Fuca, you mentioned Jonathan Kuminga earlier. He did the reclass of 2020. You see this also as a popular thing. Guys are reclassing grades to either go G League, go to college early. How do you kind of adjust to that? And what kind of player do you think that would be the right situation for a guy to do that?
Well, I think like Coach said earlier, every player is different. So their situations are different. And, I think that some of these guys are getting so talented that, why extend another high school year when you could just jump into college and help immediately. So I think, for us, there are guys that that have thought about moving up and we support that as long as their academics line up with graduating early. I think that's a big aspect is the academic part. And then from an athletic standpoint, I think that if these guys can do it and they fill a void for what their specific college that they're looking to do it with, that they can be an impact player immediately, then again, I think it's similar like the G League decision. If they can do it, then why hold the kid back? So there are a few factors that, help families decide that, but I think that's going to be another thing, Zach, that you see is the kids that are talented enough and academically fit the mold for that. I think that there will be there'll be more kids that are moving up classes.
And for you, Coach Jackson, I said earlier, you already have 4 guys committed to the colleges. They all kind of commit during this pandemic time. Were you kind of surprised by that? Or what kind of were your thoughts as these guys started committing without going on many visits?
Well, I knew like Bryce and Keon, they had already committed prior to coming to us. So there was 2 situations that we couldn't control. But for Ike and Jacoby, both of them, they contacted me prior to committing. Again, like Coach Johnson said, we weighed the options, the pros and cons. What's the best fit for you? Because like I try to tell my kids, ultimately it's it has to fit you, not us as a staff or a school. You know, we tell our kids, when you go into a situation, you need to look at how is the school going to help me academically, how I'm going to be successful down there socially, then athletically, because if you're not successful in the first two, you're not going to make it athletically at the school you're at. And so they all, both Jacoby and Ike, they looked at all three of the scenarios, and they said they felt those schools were the best one for them. And I know, of course, with Ike being from Baltimore, he's always been like a Maryland-type kid. He always wanted to, you know, get to a situation of that nature. And then Jacoby having the opportunity to play for Frank Martin, like I told him, I mean, that's one of the best ones you could ever play for at the collegiate level. So we're excited about all four of them. You know, we're excited. Hopefully we can get them all down here without no problems.
No doubt. And for you, Coach Johnson, as well, were you kind of surprised? I mean, I think a lot of people were kind of expecting guys to maybe hold out a little bit because of pandemic, wait for visits. Seeing a lot of guys commit these days during pandemic, was that at all surprising to you?
It really wasn't, because I think, you know, the lack of ability to go to visit the schools, and college coaches are probably trying to get you to sign earlier. So I did not surprise me, because who knows whether you'll be able to go on a campus in October or will it be November or whatever. And I think kids are worried if they don't make the decision and that somebody else is going to take their spot on the roster. And we only have one senior this year that plays a lot for us. So we're a bunch of young kids. So we really hadn't had to face that problem.
Absolutely. I was like wrapping up with a final question for all you guys. Talking about your guys' legacy. By the time you guys are done with your coaching careers, what do you want your legacy to be? We'll start with you, Coach Fuca.
My legacy, you know, I just want to impact the game with these guys as much as I can. You know, obviously, we all can sit here and coach enormously talented kids, but for me specifically, I'd like to be a good role model for these guys on and off the court, and use the game of basketball to help educate them and help mold them into leaders in their communities. And some of these guys are going to play at the professional level, but at some point the ball is going to stop bouncing. And so my legacy, I just, you know, want to be able to be a mentor and a leader for some of these guys, and guys that they can reach out to even when they're getting done playing basketball.
How about you, Coach Jackson?
I'll follow suit behind Coach. You know, my legacy, I just want to be able to provide the young men as well as the young women at our school, you know, that role model. Some of them don't have a father figure, and, you know, I try to be there for a lot of them. Because we are a Title I school. 93% of our kids are free reduced lunch type kids. So just be able to walk through the hallways and let the kids in our school see that there are successful African-American males in this business. And that's one of my main things, just being able to be a role model and, you know, provide a father figure for them. You know, somebody they need to talk to, I'm there for them.
That's awesome. And for you, Coach Johnson, hopefully you still have a lot more years of coaching left, but what do you ultimately want your legacy to be by the time you step away from this?
I want to be someone they feel comfortable to call, and especially in what's happened with the racial incidents and everything that's been going on in the country. What made me feel really good is how many of my players reached out to me just to talk to me about it. And I want them to always feel like they can call me anytime, any day, any night, or whatever, to talk to me about anything. And I think that's the most important thing. They feel comfortable reaching out to me to get advice and what I think. And I think that's the biggest thing. And I agree with what both coaches say, that those things are all important.
Absolutely, guys. Well, I definitely appreciate all you guys for coming on today, and can't wait to see when you guys get back on the court.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks so much, Zach. Good luck, coaches.
Same to you.
Talk to you guys later. God bless.
Thanks.